2017 had a lot of great albums in rock, metal, alternative, and everything in between. There were a lot of good surprises, but there were also some disappointments, and then there were just flat out bad albums. There's no other way around saying it. There were bad albums this year. So, let's take a look at the top 5 worst albums from these genres in 2017. I would just like to point out that I have not heard every album in 2017. That's impossible. So, if you think an album is worse than the 5 I'm about to talk about, I'm not sure I want to hear it. Not really at all, actually. Come on, I don't need more bad albums to listen to. Let's get to it.
Number 5. After seeing Prophets of Rage live at the end of 2016 and being blown away with the performance, I can't even begin to describe how excited I was for new music from a supergroup like this that also combined genres, a massive amount of talent all on the same page making targeted, direct music.
And as excited as I was equally disappointed when this album finally came out and I heard what Prophets of Rage had to offer.
Don't get me wrong, the riffs are there from Tom Morello and you hear some crazy solos, but outside of that and some decent drumming, it really feels like an underwhelming performance. Maybe it was just built up too much, or we expected more than what could possibly come, but this self-titled album definitely didn't leave a lasting impression. The song Hail to the Chief, in my opinion, is the standout. That's really about all I can say that's worth checking out. So many of the songs at a long album length sound the exact same in the rhythm. Be Real and Chuck D, while lyrically strong, just don't sound like they have a ton of fire in their performance either. I wanted something invigorating, and I got what felt like an album of guitar effects. Calling it Prophets of Rage isn't really adequate, as it sounds more like Prophets of Mildly Inconvenienced. The passion and fury just is not there.
Prophets of Rage came at the right time with the right message, but instead of inspiring people to get off their feet, they just made us all wish that Rage Against the Machine was still around. I'm one of those people too.
Respect the musicians, respect the message, but I can't remember the last time I was so disappointed by an album that should have delivered on everything, because on paper, this was the perfect recipe. You might enjoy a song or two, but for the big names involved, 1 or 2 songs is definitely not enough to make this album worth it. Number 4. After hearing the lead-off single, RX, or Medicate, constantly on the radio, I wanted to give the album a shot to at least prove to myself that the band has more to offer in 2017 than they have over the past several years. If you weren't a fan of Theory of a Deadman, or Theory as they're now going by, their latest album, Wake Up Call, will not sway you. Some of you might be saying, well, what did you expect? I expected better than generic bar and grill rock from a band that had the #1 song on rock radio for months.
I am so freaking bored, nothing to do today. I guess I'll sit around and medicate.
Take that hit song out of the equation and listen to the rest of the album. This is a collection of songs with minimal guitar inclusions to just get a rhythm going and hit the airwaves. Most of them are as mind-numbingly boring as Ben Stein reading a phone book. The album opens up with a song called Straitjacket. That, in the beginning, sounds like something you'd hear in a hotel lobby, but then the hotel manager would kick them out for sucking. As the album goes on, it doesn't even sound like Nickelback Light, as they've been coined, but rather it's some attempt at just singing whatever comes to mind and adding a backtrack to it. It's bad. The rest of the album just casually strolls along, and it doesn't even fill the definition of bro rock at this point, because I think even fraternity bros would get bored with this while pounding Monster Energy drinks and watching Tosh.0 reruns, or whatever it is the Theory bro rock fans do in their free time. Songs like Echoes, the title track, and Loner, yeah, there's a song called Loner, are the perfect example of a band screaming, "Please radio play us, give us attention and make us as much money as possible for giving minimal efforts."
There are tracks later in this album like Po Mouth and Glassjaw that are so laughably bad that I feel whoever was doing the mixing and recording in the studio while these songs were being performed probably shattered a rib from trying not to bust out laughing during the session. They're awful!
For those wondering if Theory has anything past being bored and medicating, the answer is no. A hard, definite no. The real irony is that an album titled Wake Up Call is going to put you to sleep. Number 3.
Things first, I'ma say all the words inside my head. I'm fired up and tired of the way.
In the early 2010s, there were so many alternative bands coming out of the woodwork and just getting on top of the world, having their music played everywhere. Imagine Dragons was one of them, and they were making good music. Fast forward to 2017, and what the heck happened?
I get that a lot of alternative bands start out one way and then aim at direct alt-pop or glorified movie trailer soundtracks, but sweet mercy did Imagine Dragons jump into that pool head first. And if it was good at the style, then maybe it could have been bearable. But this music was beyond boring to the point of insanity, and then it didn't help that the song Believer had been stripped of any creative instruments and now relies on what sounds like a Fruity Loops track. It's not even alternative at this point, but rather alt-pop, synth, whatever. The rest of the album is either boring or kind of annoying. I can stomach boring, but when it's echoed in mixing software on repeat, it gets really agitating, and I have yet to find anyone truly defend this album, including longtime Imagine Dragon fans. Other songs on this album, like the single Whatever It Takes, is instantly forgettable. The second half of the album, including the infuriatingly repetitive Thunder, Mouth of the River, and Start Over, are some of the most lifeless and uninspired songs I have ever heard from this group.
How did the amount of quality and effort get so low from Imagine Dragons in this? I mean, they didn't even phone it in. It's like they mailed it in, and they're just waiting for the postman to come bring them their royalty checks in their mansions. And I know that's a lot of alternative bands' dreams, just to get royalty checks and never work again, but come on, you can put more effort in than this.
They have talent, cannot deny that, and they know how to play and write, but I can't stress enough how much of a waste this album was. It feels like a way to pay bills or for another mansion for these guys to live in, and they just pushed out whatever came to their head. The title of the album might be called Evolve, but their music definitely did not progress. Number 2.
Okay, I like Suicide Silence. I like Eddie Hermida as a vocalist. And that makes it all the much more difficult to say just how rough this entire self-titled album sounds.
Back in February of 2017, Suicide Silence took a totally different approach with their new album. People were quite uneasy after hearing the first single, Doris. After weeks of airplay on metal stations and the band making a statement saying, "We don't owe anyone anything, and we can make any album we want," it made fans more uneasy of what would come.
Then the full album was released, and it turned out that Doris was the best song on the entire self-title. It was rough. Really, really rough.
And when I say rough, I mean these songs are harsh sounding and disjointed. Like they randomly combine segments out of order and there is just zero flow. Add that with what is commonly regarded as tee-hee core.
I still can't believe that's what it's called.
It's a stark change in sound when you consider that going from fierce and deep to a vocal sound of Michael Jackson's former woos really isn't going to make new fans, just confuse the old ones. I struggle to find good things to say about this album even though I want to, and I gave this self-title several chances. When this album came out, I reviewed it and gave it a 4 out of 10. Looking back, it doesn't even deserve that. I stand by what I said in that I like Eddie Hermida and the rest of the band still is extremely talented, but this album is bad, and it's gotten worse over time. From their album pitch of "We don't owe any explanations" to the sound of tee-hee to some of the most jarring and confusing metal tracks I've heard in years, Silence is preferred over Suicide Silence.
I can honestly say I'm looking forward to the next Suicide Silence album. Hopefully, they'll listen to their fans or try to go back to what worked for them before. But who knows, maybe they'll just give another unapologetic album and do whatever they want. Either way, I just don't want to hear tee-hee anymore.
Number 1.
I'm gonna try to get through this as quickly as I can, so excuse me if I start talking a little bit fast, but I get very heated when I talk about this band. So, here we go.
I've been ripping apart Emmure for years, ever since I saw them at a festival in 2014. After seeing them perform one song, I was completely done. Well, after a lineup change and a new album this year, I figured it might be worth it to give the band one more chance. I mean, hey, groups can change. Not only was Look at Yourself the worst album I heard this year, it's the worst album I've heard in years. It is the most intentionally over-the-top, fake anger-filled, screaming to be cool type of schlock that gives metalcore and even rock and metal in general a terrible reputation. The first 2 minutes of this album, which goes into the second track after the opener, is more than enough to make you want to swear off listening to music altogether. The song Flag of the Beast, which was the track released early, and I think it really set the tone of how harsh sounding this entire experience would be. This album has 2 advertised singles released from it after that: Torch, which was miserable, and Russian Hotel Aftermath, which some of them fans say is the best song they've ever done.
Wow, talking about setting the bar high.
The song Derelict also saw airplay on SiriusXM because I'm assuming the DJ was drunk. This entire album runs at just over 31 minutes, but I feel like it took a week off of my lifespan. It's clipped microphone vocals on top of drum bashing and repetitive guitar riffs meant to sound intimidating, but it's about as threatening as the Counts from Sesame Street. I'm not playing extra clips of the music because it'll lose viewers before the end. I'm also not playing Emmure in the background right now, it's just royalty-free music. Basic, royalty-free background music from YouTube's library has a better rhythm and punch than Emmure. This 7th full album under the Emmure banner can't even be considered as hot garbage, because garbage that is thrown out had use at one point, so there was at least some value before now. Look at Yourself wasn't worth anything from the moment they started screaming inaudible man-child groans into a Yeti microphone. You can argue that their target audience is spoiled adolescents trying to rebel while also trying to look tough and mean, but definitely not tough enough to get in trouble with their parents. That's the only group of people I can imagine wanting to listen to this. If that describes you and you're upset by me ripping apart Emmure, yeah, get used to it, because I'm willing to bet you're going to meet many more people who can't stand this trash either.
I've said this before, if you like any of the albums that I just talked poorly about, go ahead and like them. That's fine, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. But there is so much better music that came out in 2017. And let's be honest, we all deserve more than disappointments, cash-ins, and whatever the heck Emmure is. Ugh. I'm gonna go listen to something more pleasant, like nails on a chalkboard, or sticking a fork down a garbage disposal.
And that was my top 5 worst albums of 2017. What was the worst album you heard this year? Leave a comment below and tell everyone what you thought was hot garbage. Thanks to my patrons for their support. Huge thanks to Andy Rocketeer for making the video transitions. Please subscribe as it helps to get bumped up on YouTube searches. You can check out my concert photography on Instagram and follow Rocked on Facebook and Twitter.